Hi! Welcome to a new kind of video. When you go through my channel, you may get the impression that I play like 2 or 3 games a year, but that's not correct. I play lots of them. Sometimes I even like some of them enough to give them my honest recommendation, whatever that's worth. I wish I could spend hours I don't have making videos about every game I play, but that's just not possible. Also, sometimes there just isn't a whole lot to say, like Elden Ring good. You already know that, don't you? And thus this video was born. Whenever I have a couple of games I would like to say something about, I'll make one of these. Sounds cool? Hopefully you just nodded. Let's get started. Roboquest is a first-person roguelike shooter currently in early access, and so far it kicks a fair bit of ass. It is set in a post-apocalyptic far future where mankind survives in the desert, having abandoned their sprawling cities. You play as a guardian robot, recently discovered and reactivated by a young girl who, emboldened by having you as her new companion, embarks on a quest to figure out the secrets of the world while evil robots stand in your way. Why recommend it? Roboquest is all about smooth movement and great gunplay. There's a wide variety of different weapons available, each with a randomized straight system that keeps every drop fresh and every run unique. The feedback from the guns is very well done, with animation, graphics and sound effects working together to give you that satisfying power trip as you mow down your enemies. In true roguelike fashion, far from just having many weapons to choose from, there's a few different classes of Guardian Robot, each with their own unique abilities and upgrades. My favorite, and the one you'll be seeing the most of in these clips, is the Engineer. Mostly because I like having cute little drone companions taking damage in my stead. While all the progress and upgrades, weapons and level is reset each time you die, completing areas nets you wrenches that you can then spend in upgrading your base camp, which in turn gives more permanent bonuses to your runs. Completing levels efficiently, both in speed and deadliness, gives you more wrenches. I also really enjoy the visual style of the graphics, reminiscent of a certain famous role-playing shooter. It looks very stylized and neat. My favorite part is how, aside from the visuals and sound effects, you can read the sound of your gun when you fire like a comic book. Combat encounters in Roboquest are very fast-paced, requiring you to use the full movement potential of your character to avoid taking damage. You can sprint, double jump, slide, and even grind on railings available in every combat arena. Also a very cool movement option, jumping on enemies damages them Super Mario style. Viable strategy? Not really. Hilarious? Absolutely. You can heal damage taken by collecting health that drops from falling enemies, but only hit points lost recently will be recovered. This system and the bullet hell nature of some levels force you to be very offensive and dynamic, adding to the frenetic nature of the action. There's a few boss encounters in the game ranging from stupid easy to rage inducing. Well balanced or not, they feel like appropriate challenges that test your learned skills up to that point, especially the flow of your movements. Another very cool aspect of Roboquest, and this is something that is shared with all 3 games in this video, is that it has an awesome soundtrack. The electronic music composed by Noise Cream is just the right thing you need to get your blood pumping as you shoot evil robots while running, jumping and dashing around like a maniac. Not a lot more to say about Roboquest, it is simply very well polished, constantly being improved, and most importantly it feels great to play. Roll the montage! Obviously no game is perfect, and just like I'm summarizing the cool aspects of these games, there's also stuff you should know about to have an informed perspective on a possible purchase. Not necessarily bad things, but just so you know. In the case of Roboquest, it is worth reiterating that the game is in early access, so things may change in the future. First of all, the game has either solo or 2-player co-op modes. You can have a friend join you in multiplayer using an ID provided by the game, or you can hit the quick play button. The quick play option, however, has a strange implementation. After you hit the button, it will start searching for a buddy. You can't do anything else while searching, not exit the menu or fool around the base camp, nothing. And here's the thing, you're staring at the screen while the game searches for other people who are also staring at the screen. After many minutes of queuing, I was only able to join 2 different people, and when I loaded up to the base camp, the robots were AFK. presumably going for a snack, or to the bathroom, or anything else really other than looking at the screen. It's such a weird way to go about this, especially with a roguelike shooter. You would expect to be able to open up your match for people to join and begin playing on your own in the meantime, or be able to join ongoing matches yourself when you search for one. You know me, I have no friends, and I don't mind going at it solo. In fact, I kinda enjoy it most of the time. But if you want to play co-op, you better convince a buddy to get the game as well. A robot, as the game calls them. Secondly, if you've played other roguelikes, particularly roguelike shooters, then obviously comparisons are afoot. Many reviews understandably compare this game to Gunfire Reborn, since it's one of maybe like 2 or 3 other roguelike first-person shooters. We really need more of these games, so they're awesome. Anyway, Gunfire Reborn is the first game I made a proper video about, reviewing its early access state back in 2021. I would like to make a proper comparison video once Roboquest is released in its full form and it's more of a fair fight, so to speak. If you want my TLDR so far, Roboquest has the better moment-to-moment gameplay, particularly the movement and the feel of the shooting, along with better presentation and soundtrack. Gunfire Reborn, on the other hand, has far superior progression, better classes, and superior weapon, enemy, and build variety. My honest recommendation is that you eventually play them both, cause they are awesome for similar but different enough reasons. Hi, sorry for interrupting the video. I'm just editing right now and I realized that I haven't mentioned that both of these games are available on Game Pass. So if you're part of the Game Pass Elite, you can check them out there. I'm pretty sure that Gunfire Reborn is available both on PC and Xbox, and Roboquest is so far only available on PC. Anyway, continue with the video. Roboquest might still be early access, but in my opinion it is absolutely worth the current asking price. The devs are very active both in updates and community feedback. The latest update, in fact, massively reworked several core features of the gameplay, very much improving it in my opinion. Need any more convincing? The loading screen features the characters traveling in a van, and if you press the spacebar it jumps up and down. It's great, go check it out. An action role-playing shooter set in a cyberpunk future, The Ascent is the debut game of Neon Giant, a small team of only about a dozen developers, and boy is it one hell of a debut. This game ticks a lot of the boxes necessary for fun and addictive gameplay while being set in a visually stunning and competently crafted sci-fi universe. The Ascent takes place on the planet Veles, a futuristic dystopian world controlled by a mega corporation known as the Ascent Group. You play as an indentured laborer or indent. These are people who sign contracts that allow for off-world travel into the planet in exchange for what is essentially a lifetime of servitude. After a brief tutorial mission that takes place in the lower levels, shit goes south, and from there on it's all about going up in the world, climbing that corporate ladder one gruesome murder at a time. Planet Veles and overall the world of the Ascent is wonderfully realized. One aspect in particular that I really enjoyed is that, unlike many other cyberpunk settings, the Ascent also has a lot of sci-fi space opera in it. There are several species of aliens also trying to make Veles their home alongside the humans, and by the few interactions you get with each of the side characters, you end up getting a pretty good grasp of how each of the different races play their roles in the world. It's also competently made and thought out that by the end of my first playthrough I actually regretted the fact that this game is an action shooter with RPG elements, and instead I wished it was more of a Mass Effect style RPG. Not only does the Ascent look great, particularly the lighting and visual design, but it also manages to perfectly pull off that cyberpunk look. You know the one I'm talking about, where it all looks busy and crowded but without getting too overwhelming. The isometric perspective also helps take it all in and notice all the detail that goes into every area of the game. And if that wasn't enough, the developers sometimes like to toot their own horn and switch perspectives to show that there is indeed a fair bit of this world that is painstakingly rendered and detailed. Aside from its looks, the Ascent's soundscape is also amazing. All sound effects from explosions, abilities, enemies and weapons are just a perfect fit for each of the things they are trying to represent. You know that feeling in a game when you pick up a new weapon, open fire and think, yeah, that is exactly how I wanted this thing to sound. That feeling exactly. The assault rifle particularly manages to increase my endorphin levels a little bit with each shot.
That's power.
Tell me about it. I just hear that
gun.
Now shut up.
Move.
Ooh. Do it again.
Move.
Combat in general feels really good. Taking out enemies in this game is very satisfying. When shot, enemies not only stagger for a moment, but sometimes limbs will fly out, or with bigger weaponry just outright explode. Have you ever made a man blow tap and pop like a balloon? The Ascent's got you covered. The game's physics turns enemies into ragdolls when killed, and debris from explosions or destroyed cover fly all over the place. The aforementioned sound design, along with the animations of your and enemy attacks, combined with the creative upgrades and abilities you can unlock, make each engagement a frantic visual spectacle. Added to this is a neat little evasion feature. When using this, your character will dodge out of the way to try and avoid damage. Evasion has 2 charges and a small cooldown that can be reduced by leveling up. Believe me when I tell you that you will be needing this feature. Combat arenas being filled with chest-high obstacles might lead you to think this is a cover shooter, but it's a bit more complicated than that. You're mostly safe crouching behind cover until you're not. Enemies in this game are very aggressive and will try to flank you and overwhelm you at all times. This also pairs very nicely with a great enemy design. Some will shoot you, others will run at you with melee weapons. Some carry large sniper rifles, others place attack and support drones that pester you and heal your enemies respectively. In order to survive, you will have to decide when to stand your ground and when to relocate, and which enemies should be prioritized first. Combat happens at a breakneck speed, so you will either be learning all this or not get very far. And finally, let's of course talk about the amazing original score composed by Pavel Flashjack. The synth-heavy music not only sounds great and helps the game take its atmosphere to the next level, but it's also incredibly malleable. It is very likely that whatever compression both Premiere and YouTube applied to this video failed to do the visuals justice. But still, I will try to end this section with a couple of my favorite areas of the game, set to my favorite track from the soundtrack. Okay, time for not so great stuff, and funnily enough, my main complaint with this game is the same or at least fairly similar to that of Roboquest. The Ascent includes a co-op mode, but has no matchmaking. You can only invite other friends that own the game, or they can invite you, but joining anyone who might be playing just isn't possible. It does have the neat option to play couch co-op, which is something so rare in games nowadays that I actually had to do a double take when I saw the option. It does however require you to own 2 controllers on PC. Despite the game being perfectly playable solo using mouse and keyboard, the option is just not there for local co-op. There's a couple other things, but I suspect those are a bit more my own personal preference. The story, for example, didn't exactly do wonders for me. The world is very well crafted, but the actual narrative of events you experience are a bit lackluster and boil down to excuses to visit the places and shoot the people. You do get to meet interesting little side characters, which end up being the highlight of the adventure.
Biometrics match those of employee number 0381945Z, Laurel Lanier. That's her. Preliminary forensics analysis indicates she died recently, and messily. I will savor these images. There goes the competition. There's something artful about the recently demised. I never tire of corpses.
The RPG side of the game is also a little weak in my opinion. There are many stats to level and things to upgrade, supposedly inviting you to create other characters and try different builds, but I simply don't think the game has enough content to warrant doing that. If you do end up playing more of this game, it will be because it feels good and it's awesome, and not because there is a lot of stuff to see and try out. This action RPG definitely leans more to the action side of the matter, with great success, don't get me wrong. Just be aware that this isn't much of a role-playing game. Anyway, let's continue, or should I say let's dig deeper? ladies and gentlemen, I have indeed saved the best for last in this video. Deep Rock Galactic is a 4-player co-op shooter. It is about an interplanetary mining corporation whose workforce is composed of dwarves and the occasional drone. This game is fantastic. Matter of fact, if I ever end up doing a proper full-length video on it, that would be the title. Deep Rock Galactic is fantastic. I honestly don't know where to start. I'm trying to keep each game section to around 1,000 words, but I can already tell I'm gonna struggle with this one. Okay, let's break the good bits into sections. First, it has a very simple gameplay loop with a well thought out class system. 1 to 4 dwarves are deployed via drop pod into a procedurally generated level in which they need to complete a certain objective. It could be something as simple as mining, to more complex things like building and defending pipelines, seeking and destroying large threats in the form of boss fights, or escorting a giant mechanized drill named Doretta. The main obstacle to the completion of your objectives is the local fauna of the planet, namely the bug-like glyphids, but also other kinds of nasty creatures. Successfully completing a mission gives you XP and credits which you can then use alongside precious minerals to unlock upgrades and cosmetics for your dwarves. The classes are similar enough to be relatively easy to pick up and play from scratch, but they each fulfill different roles in the team, which makes mastering them very different experiences. They are also well balanced enough that they contribute to the team while at the same time not being essential. Any number of dwarves can successfully complete any mission, but having a well balanced and competent team makes it all way easier. My favorite is the Scout, for one simple reason.
And I will have a grappling hook! Yes!
Wouldn't you rather have, like, a doll or something?
Grappling hook!
Fair enough.
Number 2. Lots of mission variety. Okay, so procedurally generated is a term that usually gets some fair criticism due to its often impersonal nature. If something is created by an algorithm, the result can be formulaic and repetitive. This game works around it by not having all of its elements be randomized, but rather having a set of base elements for each level that are set in stone and handcrafted to provide the right experience. I'm not joking when I say there is lots of mission variety. There's 8 mission types, 10 different regions where said missions can take place, each with different biomes that have its own visual and gameplay implications. 21 modifiers, both good and bad, that can alter the progression of a level. 60 types of life form, both hostile and neutral. Add to this the layouts I mentioned, which change a bit depending on the mission type, and you got yourself a ton of variables that make it so that no 2 deployments are truly alike. Number 3. No bullshit. Before picking up this game, I heard that it had highly customizable player characters with a ton of cosmetics and also a season pass, and I thought, okay, that's just the way it is, isn't it? This is how games are made nowadays, and I usually don't mind as long as these things don't get in the way of fun. Imagine my surprise when I noticed that actually there's no microtransactions in this game. There's a season pass that's free for everyone, there's a shop where you spend your hard-earned credits on hard-mined minerals, there's loadout modifiers called matrix cores, but none of this costs money, just whatever currency you have acquired. The credits and minerals are not like a fancy name for a purchasable currency either. All of it is acquired from gameplay. If you do wish to spend money, you need to go to the Steam page and purchase a cosmetic DLC. There's also only a handful of these, so you can tell this is not the main priority of the dev team. I mentioned in a previous video that of all the ways games can introduce paid add-ons, this is my favorite way of doing so because it hardly interferes with the experience. I actually went and bought myself a pack during the last sale they had because I think that in the world of video games, good business practices are rare and should be rewarded. And also my guns look very cool now. One final thing I love about this game is that it's very naturally immersive, that being a term I just made up. Let me explain. I call a game naturally immersive when players are given the tools and the context and they themselves take on a role because of things like the world building, presentation and atmosphere gently pushing them to do so. In the case of Deep Rock, its tone and presentation are that of dark corporate humor, where dwarves are just another tool the company has and they don't much care about them beyond their performance. This is all complemented by the level design, flavor text and voice lines, and most importantly the gameplay. This game manages to do something that's very cool but rather hard to explain, and that is being a little mundane but in a good way. When I first started playing and got into my first shootout with alien bugs, it was great. The shooting feels very good, your enemies are blown to bits, and surviving a swarm or rushing to the drop pod for evac are very exhilarating experiences. However, the more I play, the more I notice myself getting immersed into the idea that this is actually my job. And bugs showing up to eat us is a bad thing that interrupts what I'm doing and is honestly somewhat annoying. I just want to get paid and buy a funny little hat. Just kidding, I don't really need hats cause all my dwarves are slayers. This is another area where mission variety helps a lot, cause I can see how this would get boring real quick if mining stuff was the sole objective of your adventures. What I'm probably failing to express is that it doesn't feel like work because it's fun, but it's also really easy to get into the role of my dwarf to whom it is just work. I'm not grinding for cosmetics or unlocks like I would in something like Destiny, cause here it's my job and I must go out with my fellow dwarves, watch each other's backs, complete the missions and get back home safe without leaving anyone behind. Then we get paid and have a toast with some beers at the bar while dancing to kick-ass tunes. Oh yeah, I didn't mention this, but this is the best part of the game. You can order rounds, unlock new beers with weird side effects, get proper drunk, dance, play an infuriating minigame, pass out, or even go on a mission while drunk. I'm not even gonna have a you should know section with this one cause I can't really think of anything. I've played it for about 60 hours and have no real complaints. Maybe the graphics will not be to everyone's liking and I can kinda see that. There are many more things I would like to praise about this game: great soundtrack, rewarding progression, actual matchmaking to play with people if you have no friends, etc, etc. For now, I'll just say you should play Deep Rock Galactic because it is essentially the perfect comfort game. I play it and I don't feel the need to grind for a battle pass or complete the challenges or look up strats on YouTube or anything like that. As a final cherry on top, all of this I just mentioned comes in a tiny, little package of less than 3 gigs. Which gives Deep Rock Galactic the strange honor of being the only game that has so far never been uninstalled from my computer since I first played it. Always there just in case I feel like going down into the darkness to mine some gold. Thank you very much for watching, let me know if you enjoyed this type of video or not, and consider liking and subscribing for more of these, game reviews and other stuff. I have to go now, I have some more work to do.